Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to Vastola on the Law. I'm your host, Jeff Vastola, and I'm here every Saturday morning at 7:30 to give you free legal advice.
A little bit.
I'm sorry, Sharina?
Can you turn up your volume a little bit?
Yep, sure. How's that?
A little bit more.
All right. Is that better?
Keep going.
Okay, I'll go to 100%. Working on some technical issues here on the radio. That's about as high as I can go, Sharina. So maybe I'll just get a little bit closer. I didn't want to get too close this morning because on Facebook Live they can see me. Good morning to everybody that's watching. I am Jeff Vastola, your host, and I'm an attorney, and I'm here in Florida to give you free legal advice in the state of Florida and do my best to answer your questions here and now. If you call into the show with a question, or if you type in a question on Facebook Live and I'm not able to answer your question right here and right now because I don't know the answer, then I will research the issue and get back to you the following week with what I consider to be an educated response. So this show, I do not have a legal topic planned. This show is going to be dedicated to my father. For those of you that are not aware, my dad passed away on Sunday after his very long battle with COVID. And I just wanted to spend some time talking about my dad and what he meant to me. Good morning, my sister Lee. She came down and spent some quality time with us. Nice to see you early on a Saturday morning, Lee, up in Tennessee. So, what I just, yep, I love you too. It's maybe news to some, but really for most people, it's no big secret that the reason that I got into radio, probably close to 20 years ago now, is because of my dad. And for those of you that don't know my dad and who he was a physician. He was in Palm Beach County for a very long time. Moved my family down from Buffalo when I was roughly 6 years old, and we moved into the North Palm Beach area. And my dad never left. He was here. He had a thriving medical practice, retired once, decided that retirement wasn't for him, so he went back to work, opened up his office again, and was working and kept his office open and was seeing patients in the office throughout all of 2020 when a lot of places were, refusing to see people with COVID. My dad, kept his office open, and I admire him for that. But ultimately, the disease is what took his life. But before I get into those issues, I want to first thank everybody for all of the thoughts and prayers that have been flooding in. They help. They really do help a lot. We know that Dad's in a better place. We wish he was here with us, but knowing that he cannot be, we know he's in a better place. And it just helps. It helps a lot. So the support was really overwhelming. It really was. But getting back to how my dad influenced me, first of all, he influenced me to go to law school, which is interesting. He didn't want me to go into medicine because when I was, facing my decisions in life about what I was going to do as an occupation, he was fighting a battle back in the 1980s against the HMOs. The HMO insurance companies were coming into town and they were trying to change the insurance industry, and for a large part they did, but my dad fought them, and he fought them hard, and he just felt that medicine was not a great occupation at that time, or it wasn't going to be a great occupation because of that influence. So he helped direct me into to go to law school. One of my father's best friends, a guy named Rick, was a lawyer. My dad watched Rick go to school, graduate, become successful. They stayed in touch, and my dad thought, well, that's probably the better way to go for you. So although he didn't make decisions for me, he was certainly influential, and that's one of the reasons I ended up going to law school. But I'm digressing a little bit because I wanted to talk more about how I got into radio, and that was because of him. And for those of you that have been in town for any length of time, actually you have to be here for a long time, you might remember at the Lake Worth Pier, there was a tiny, tiny, tiny little radio station just south of the pier. It would use that same parking lot that used to be there. If you go there now, what you see is not what was there 30 years ago. It used to be a tiny little parking lot with a really cool, quaint pier, and just south of it was a tiny, tiny, tiny little radio station with a radio station tower right there on the beach. And my dad got involved at that radio station because there was there was a physician who had a medical show, and I never met the physician that was on the show before my dad, but my understanding was that that physician was getting older and was looking for a replacement to do the show, and somehow my dad got hooked up with that person, and so my dad started every once in a while going down to this radio station in Lake Worth to do a Saturday morning medical advice radio program. Well, that just clicked with my dad. He absolutely loved it. And so my dad went into radio and never left radio until he transitioned into television. And those of you that have been around a while know that my father was on TV for a long time with his little white dog, Patrick. And my dad loved that stuff. And so when I got on my feet and had something of a successful practice, I started dabbling into radio myself, and it wasn't because I came up with the idea. It was because I had seen my dad do it, and I had seen my dad do it very successfully. So my first experience was also on a tiny, tiny, tiny little station. It wasn't that same station in Lake Worth, because that station is now was long gone. By the time I started getting into radio, I think it's about 20 years ago. But my first station, come to find out, was a tiny little AM station down in West Palm Beach, a little bit further south, kind of like the Green Acres area. And it was predominantly a Haitian station, Haitian radio. But they offered me a 30 minutes in the afternoon. It was like the lunch hour from 12 to 12:30. And it was I signed a short contract. I think it was like a 3-month contract, and I went in there, my first week with like a book of an outline ready to go, just scared to death that I was going to run out of things to say. So I just had so much stuff ready, and I did the first show. Good morning, Lindsay, my other sister, watching the program this morning. Hey, Julie, my cousin Julie, and so anyway. I did the first few shows, and I was getting no phone calls at all. And I thought, well, this is kind of strange. I thought I was supposed to be getting phone calls. It's a call-in program. So it wasn't long after that I had a couple of people planted to make phone calls. I asked my mother and my sister to call into the station, not telling anybody that they were planted calls, but to see what's going on. Why am I not getting any phone calls? Well, they both called. And the board operator at the radio station gave them some flimsy excuse to say something like, oh, he's not taking phone calls, or he's busy, or something like that. So after the show, they called me on my cell phone and said, hey, we called in, and apparently they're not taking phone calls. So that was my first experience on radio, and needless to say, that contract ended sooner than it was supposed to, because that was not working out. But the idea of being on the radio and the idea of being there as a resource for people really stuck pretty quick. And so that's why from there I kept doing it. I went to different stations and ended up on a competing station for a very, very long time, an AM station. I was on that one for almost 7 years. Took a little bit of a break and then went to a couple of other stations, tried different days, different times to see what really works best. But for now, we're here on 8:50 a.m. You can call into the show, by the way, if you want to, and ask me anything you want. The number to call in is 877-850-8585. And I'll do my best to answer your question here and now. But if I can't answer the question, then I'll do the research I have to do and get back to you the following week. And that's just kind of it just worked out that way. That's the way I've always done it from day one. And so if you do happen to call in, if you do happen to be told that I need to do some research to your issue and get back to you the following week, then you can listen the following week. Or if you happen to miss that show, you can go to my website, or you can go to my YouTube channel, and you can hear these audio podcasts, I guess they would be called, because we save all of them. This show will also be there. But if you want to call into the radio station, again, that number is 877-850-8585. if you want to go to my website, you can go to www.vastolalegal.com. And Vastola is V as in Victor, Astola. And you can also call me 24/7 on a phone number that goes directly to my cell phone. That's 833-VASTOLA. Get a common theme here. 833-VASTOLA. That's 833-827-8652. You can call me anytime you want. If it's a radio show type question, I may ask you to please call me back on a Saturday morning, because oftentimes your questions are going to be interesting or helpful to other people. If it's something of a personal nature that you don't want to share with other people, then certainly I'll spend some time with you on the phone and try to do my best. But most importantly, if you think you have a case that you want me to help you with, then certainly call me anytime. Call me on the weekend. Call me at night. I don't mind. That's why I have a toll-free number that goes directly to my cell phone, so that you can reach me anytime. And if I don't answer it, then leave me a message. And I have found out recently that my voicemail fills up pretty quickly. So if you try to call, if you can't leave a message because the voicemail is full, then send a text, because that number, I do believe, should be able to receive a text message. So I will get back to you as soon as I can, once I hear your message or see that you've tried to contact me. But getting back to the purpose of this program, good morning, Michael. Nice to see you. I hope all is well with you and your wife. My father passed away on Sunday after a very long battle with COVID. And the message that I wanted to get across to anybody that's listening or anybody that's watching is this sounds awfully cliche, and I know that, and so I apologize, but it's just true. Don't take for granted the time that you have with those that are still alive. Because I'll tell you this, my dad was not sick. He was not a sickly person. You know, when you hear, oh, somebody died from COVID, at least I'll speak for me personally, the assumption is, okay, well, that person was compromised, they were sickly, they were old, they were something like that. My dad was 77 years old. I don't think that's old. His mother, my grandmother, lived to be 96. My grandfather, his father, had 2 or 3 heart attacks and lived to be into his mid-80s. I mean, my dad died way too young, in my opinion. Hey, Mom, good morning. And so the message this morning is, and although it's very cliche, is don't take for granted the time that you have with those around you. And I should be speaking directly to my mom. Next time you're here, we'll spend more time together. Because like I said, my dad was not sick. I had lunch with my dad the week before, not even a full week, but I had lunch with my dad on a Thursday, I believe, which is something that we did quite a bit. I wish we did more of it. And then it was early the next week that I got the phone call that he was going into the hospital because he was having trouble breathing. When I saw my dad at lunch, he looked perfectly fine, and he was perfectly fine. It's just still shocking to me to see the rapid decline in my dad, because he just wasn't sick when I saw him. And of course, if he was sick, and if I knew that our time was limited, I would have spent a lot more time with him, but I just took for granted that he was always going to be there. And so please, hear my message. Very, very, very regrettably, I have a close friend, a guy I played soccer with for years and years, and I found out that his father passed away on the same day as my dad from COVID, after having another similar battle. So this is a nasty, nasty disease. It takes otherwise healthy people and wrecks them very, very quickly. So please spend time with those that you love, and realize that they may not always be here. It's kind of an assumption I had about my dad. He was literally in my life from day one, and just kind of always assumed he'd be there. But a real sincere thank you to everybody who reached out to us. I mean, the outpouring is just shocking. How many people care, and they were praying and everything. It was wonderful. So, this program that I do every weekend, in a way, I owe it to my dad. And so I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to dedicate this show to him. And we know he's in a better place, and we're at peace with that. At least I am. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm a person of faith, and I believe very strongly that my Father's in heaven. So if anybody has any questions, please call into the show. The show's been quiet the last couple of months, to be honest with you. I'm not certain what the reason is for that. It's now January 2nd. Oh, by the way, Happy New Year. Sorry, Happy New Year to everybody. That was a little bit delayed. I hope 2021 is much better for everybody. I'm on the bandwagon with everybody that says, thankfully 2020 is over. But hopefully 2021 is better, and as this COVID thing is just a blip in the rearview mirror in a few years, hopefully. But if you'd like to talk to me about a case of your own, I do personal injury and wrongful death claims. If you'd like to talk to me, you can reach me at either office. I have an office in Stewart. I have an office in Palm Beach Gardens. And as I mentioned, you can reach me anytime, anywhere at 833-VASTOLA. Let me see what else I have on my outline to talk about. That's really it. I have some, every week I talk about my, my Florida Law Weekly, and I went through some of these things, but, to be very honest with you, I probably should start off the year with a bigger bang, but I think we're going to ramp up the promotional advertisements on the radio program, on the radio station that air throughout the week, to see if we can't generate more interest for people to call into the show. I hate to think that what I'm talking about is so compelling that people are just sitting back and listening, because that's not the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show is to take phone calls and interact with people and help people that have real life issues. And it's just been really quiet the last couple of months on the radio station with very few calls. And so we want that to change. We want you to call in. We want you to interrupt me as I'm speaking, because that interaction makes the show more interesting. And I feel a lot more helpful if I'm actually responding to somebody's questions instead of just picking up topics of my own. And of course today I don't have a topic except the thank you to my father for getting me into radio. And for obviously much more than that. So if you want to call me, 833-VASTOLA, 833-827-8652. And again, just a very sincere thank you to everybody that reached out with prayers and condolences and just support. It was truly amazing. So I am, how much time do I have? I've got about 10 minutes left. I guess I can talk about a case. I was going to cut out early, but I didn't want to catch Sharina by surprise.
I have Dawn.
Oh, wonderful. We do have a phone call, and it's probably my buddy Don, who's very dedicated to the program. Good morning, Don. How are you? Hopefully we haven't lost Don. Don, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, how are you, Don?
May I take you sorry to hear about Dad, and you said that he's maybe in the right place now, and he's resting. So,
Yes.
and he's being taken care of naturally.
Yes.
I wanted to take up a little bit. I don't want to take up a little too much of your time, but my question is, I have a friend that's has an LLC corporation. He's purchasing 3 vehicles, and he's going to let me use one for as long as I want. And my question is that if he passes before I do, what would happen to the vehicle as all 3 of them will be in his LL corporation? Would I be able to continue to use this vehicle?
Well, that just depends on his desired intent, and how the vehicle is purchased. The vehicles are similar to homes in a sense that if you're going to finance the vehicle, you have to title the vehicle in a certain way, and that's the state of Florida being informed who is the owner of the vehicle. And then if you're going to finance it with a bank, it depends. Okay, who's going to be responsible for the payments on the vehicle? And that has really nothing to do with how the vehicle is going to be titled. If your friend is going to buy them with cash and there's no finance issues, then the answer is simply, what is his intent? Is his intent for the LLC to go on and to own the vehicles and to allow you to use them? If that's his intent, then you should be able to continue to use them, because at some point, if he's the sole owner of the LLC, or those, I should say manager, if he's the sole manager of the LLC, that would be assets of his upon his death, and then you'd have to look at his will, or if he doesn't use a will, you'd have to look at the statute to see who's supposed to get his assets and what's, you know, the desired intent. So it's an interesting question.
We're paying cash for all vehicles. We won't get any financing.
All right. Well, that removes one little wrinkle, but really, it's more of the desired intent, and what does he want to have happen with that LLC upon his demise? You know, he could transfer rights of the LLC to you. There's, you know, the old saying, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. So if it's your friend's,
Can you do a corporation resolution?
well, you would do something similar to that in the LLC, sure. We're wading into territory that I just don't practice in, but I mean, if you have a more specific question, if you want to get with your friend and say, look, when you pass on, do you want me to continue to use the vehicle? You know, find out that bit of information and then get back to me, and I can do some research to say, okay, this is how you guys would do that.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, yes, I will do that. I thought you would. And I just wanted to say that if there's no intestate, that no will, that means his wife would probably take over the corporation. Would that be correct?
Yes. If the corporation is an asset, then I shouldn't say yes, because I'm not certain. I'd have to. Don, let me look into that and see what happens to an LLC upon somebody's death, because I'm not certain that it passes as an asset. I think it probably does, but I don't want to say something that's not accurate.
Okay. All right, I'll get back to you then.
Yep. All right, let's talk again next week. I'll give you some follow-up.
Okay, thank you for your help.
All right, Don. Thanks for calling in, too. I appreciate it. Don is a long-time listener. Consider him a friend. Never met him in person, but he's just been very active with the show, so I appreciate you calling in, Don. And hey, good morning, Andy. And those of you that typed into Facebook Live while I was talking, I didn't see the information scrolling up. And I got a message from Sharina that Jennifer Ross is here. And yes, Sharina, if you want to put Jennifer on the line, if she has a moment, that would be fantastic. Because
okay,
it's an excellent segue in a way to finish this program, which is dedicated to my dad, because Jennifer Ross was my dad's co-host on the radio programs for a lot of years. And if you ever listened to the two of them, they just had, what would you call it? Fantastic, what do they call it when you have two hosts that work well together? You guys know what I'm talking about. But Jennifer Ross, when she gets on the line with us, she's been in radio. She's a professional radio show hostess. She's been in radio forever. I don't want to date Jennifer.
Okay,
but...
don't push it, Jeff, okay?
Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
Good morning, and first and foremost, my sympathies to your family, Gail, Lindsay, Alice, and everybody.
Thank you.
And you. Your dad and I have known each other, oh, goodness, almost 41 years. Years ago, we did a show. Jeff, I don't even know how old you were when we started this, but we did a show at our old radio station on WJNO when it was off of where the Ferris building now sits, is where the old studio used to be.
Flagler.
And
right.
Each Saturday morning, your dad and I would do a 2-hour medical show. And I was purely there to keep your dad non-political. You know how difficult that was?
Yeah, because he would get into my Facebook Live and start doing it, and I'd have to tell him to knock it off.
I'd be like, Dr. V, you can't do that. You can't do that stuff. He goes, why not? It's all about politics. Everything's combined. But I have to tell you, for anybody who's never met your dad, number one, he was probably the kindest, greatest human being I'd ever met. Gail included, his wife, because they were married for so many years. And I unfortunately never met your mom. But your dad, I can't tell you how many times he actually saved me. I was in the hospital in pain. Your dad would show up. He diagnosed me like almost immediately after nobody else could figure it out. Your dad would figure it out in like a matter of minutes. But he was there for the birth of all my children. I had my wedding in your backyard. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
When you were a little kid?
Yeah.
So, I got so many fond memories. We went to England together. We traveled together. We went out to dinner all the time. I was always at your house. And you would be running around playing with your toys because you were just a little kid back then.
I know.
But
and
he
you
was
haven't
a great
aged a
man.
bit, Jennifer. You look the same now as you did back then. I don't know how you do that.
No, you know what? You're just as charming as your father, Jeffrey. Thank you so very
1 minute.
But
All right.
he was a great man. So he will be missed. Heaven has gained a true champion and a true angel. So my sympathies, sweetie. I'm so sorry, and I wish I could take the pain away. That's all I can say.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. I really appreciate you, and we'll see you again soon.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll be over. Don't worry.
All right. Thank you for getting on, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. God bless you, sweetheart.
Bye-bye.
30 seconds.
All right, I've got 30 seconds. Thank you all for watching and listening today. Good morning to everybody watching on Facebook Live. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you again for all your prayers. We really appreciate that. We love you, Dad.